Hi, I'm Belinda.
I'm Nigella.
And I'm Rob.
And welcome to Beyond at Home.
It's one thing to know a lot about weightlifting and another thing to actually lift weights.
It's one thing to know about nutrition and another thing to eat healthy.
Similarly, it's one thing to know a lot about the Bible and another thing to actually live out what it teaches. That's why the Christian life isn't just about knowledge. The value is in the application because in the end, it's obedience that makes the difference.
Today we are going to have two great songs from the band and then cross over to Lockie for the second part of our message in the series Figuring Faith Out. So sit back,
relax,
and enjoy this week's message, and we'll see you after.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. How do you turn
this thing on?
How? What?
This is Perfect Love by Kingdom Culture. You are the one that surpasses all borders and time. You stepped across all the boundaries and walls in my mind. You are the one who came by the water and blood. You testified against fear and replaced it with love. Perfect love drives out fear and love forgets all the years that were stolen and were broken. You're restoring them all. Perfect love drives out fear and love forgets all the years that were stolen
sound in me, let it break. At your name still, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing again. I will faith.
Have you ever had a moment in your life where your mind was completely blown? Whether big or small, significant or insignificant, I'm sure we can all think of a time when our minds were completely blown. We couldn't comprehend the shocking or unexpected thing that we'd encountered. For you, it might be something really wholesome, like the first time you held your baby. Or maybe it was when you landed the dream job you never thought you'd get. Or maybe for some, it was when you started dating your dream crush. I mean, for me, I find some really simple and kind of trivial things mind-blowing. And like, I found this one this week. If you have an iPhone, you can actually play along at home with me. When you get on your phone and you actually press that torch icon, the little switch in the middle turns on. I don't know. I just thought that it was incredible. Check it out. Play, like, do it at home. It blew my mind. Anyway, well, another one I found this week on the internet, actually TikTok specifically, was the Nutella jar. I learned that, how's this? In the lid of your Nutella jar, there's actually a little knife they give you hidden under this little bit of packaging here so that you can spoon your Nutella out straight from the jar into your mouth. Check this out. Ooh. Well, probably should have checked that before we started filming. Anyway, well, things like this have blown my mind in the past. I actually wanted to share an experience in my life which changed my perspective of everything. It truly blew my mind. It was in 2011 and I was invited to attend a camp and I went. I had no idea what was going to happen. All I knew that it was a bit of fun and games and that there was some kind of Christian element to it, but I wasn't fazed by it at the time. It wasn't until the second night that my life completely changed. And I know it's been almost a decade since that experience, and I couldn't tell you who said what or what exactly happened. But I remember walking away from that experience going, wow, I didn't realize this is what it meant to be a Christian. You know, I'd gone to church my whole life to this point. I'd gone to a Christian school and I thought I knew everything about it, but something changed on this camp. It wasn't until the Bible was taught to me in a way which made it applicable to my life. And no longer I saw faith being about information, but actually about someone to have a relationship with. And why did this happen so quickly over the space of a day? Well, I was exposed to practical teaching of the Bible, and it all made sense to me. And it was taught by people who just lived and breathed the way that Jesus did. And in that moment, my mind was blown. I'm so grateful for the experience that I had as a teenager where faith was figured out for me, or at least a little part of it. But part of the reason that Beyond exists, or actually a massive part of the reason that Beyond exists, is so that people like yourself would be able to figure their faith out. And so that's why we're doing this whole series based around the idea of figuring out our faith. And if you're a Christian and you're tuning in, we want you to have a big faith. We want you to develop a really big capacity and potential for faith in your life. And we hope this series will help you to do that. And if you're a non-Christian, well, thanks for being here. And we just hope that you can start to go on the journey of discovering and figuring out this faith thing for yourself. And we hope that this is going to be super practical for you over the next couple of weeks. Chris kicked us off last week with part 1 of this series, and he gave a really big introduction to the 5 things we would be talking about. So if you want to find out what those 5 things are, feel free to go jump back to last week's message and check it out for yourself. But for today, we're going to be zeroing in the idea of practical teaching. That practical teaching is going to help us find out where we are in our faith and what we need to do to get to that next level. And maybe you've had a mind-blowing moment in your life or your faith, and whether you follow Jesus or not, I'm sure you can think of those times in your life where you've had a real shift, where things have changed and you've started to see the world differently. Well, about 2,000 years ago, a whole bunch of people had a mind-blowing experience that really changed their perspective, sitting on a hill listening to a bloke speak. And Jesus was kind of like the new kid off the block. Is it new kid on the block? Off the block. Anyway, he was like the new kid and everyone wanted to come see him speak. Every man and his nan rolled in when they heard that Jesus was about to present, because he taught with this confidence and this authority that those teachers of the law at the time just did not have. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, waiting for the next thing to be said. They were picking up everything that Jesus was putting down. Why was this so different? Well, this crowd had become so used to hearing information that they actually never heard anything that might change their life. Their faith was based on turning up and attending rather than actually believing and applying the information into their life. How? Through practical teaching. Jesus outlined really quickly how to be generous, how to pray, how we should love one another, and people absolutely frothed the information that they were hearing because they knew it applied to their lives. But Jesus knew that the crowd was only really interested in the information at this point, that they really struggled to take a grip and use the information to apply in their lives. I mean, we all know that knowledge without application is useless. I mean, you can have as many books about nutrition, as many Thermomixes or Lorna Janes or Gymsharks as you want, but until you get outside and tie your shoes up, you're not going to get fit. I mean, you can know everything about finances, but until you get your pay and you put something in your savings, you're going to be living paycheck to paycheck. And we can all picture that guy in high school who gave out all the relationship advice, even though he'd never been within proximity of a girl. Why? Because we know that knowledge of relationships does not lead to healthy relationships. Although we understand this concept logically, it becomes a bit challenging when it comes to our faith. And I know that at times I've rated my spirituality on my attendance and my knowledge of God rather than the relationship. And maybe you grew up in a church that prioritized information over application. Maybe you don't really like the church because all you think it is a set of rules that you need to follow. Potentially, you've never had anything to do with faith, but every time you seem to look into the church, you never find anything genuine. But Jesus was fully aware that this crowd was really interested in knowledge without application. And rather than getting angry at them or reprimanding them for that, he took an opportunity to get beside them and start to practically teach them of their next steps, of what they should do with their faith. And as a result, people were clear of their next steps. So not only were their minds blown, they knew exactly what to do with the information that they had received, hearing from Jesus on this hill 2,000 years ago. We pick up this story written by a guy named Matthew, and he's a guy that traveled with Jesus, and he kind of documented his life for about 3 years. And in this passage where Jesus is talking to the crowd, he finishes his concluding statement, his kind of mic drop moment goes like this: "Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock." Jesus finishes this entire message, this entire sermon, by emphasizing how important it is to do something with your faith. He's saying that if you want to see the fruit, if you want to see the difference in your life, you have to apply the message that he just taught. And as an extension of this, Jesus is taking the power out of attendance. He's saying you can attend as many of my speeches, you can go to as many church services or listen to as many podcasts as you like. You can tune into church at home 4 times in a row if you really like. However, that's not going to do anything if it's not applied. When people follow the teachings of Jesus in their lives, things start to change. And it's great when people say, wow, I understand what the Bible means and I applied it. Because people see amazing things happen in their finances, in their relationships, their dating life or married life, family, in their study or in their work. Things start to change when they start to apply the teachings of Jesus in my life. And one of the many blessings that I have in my life is seeing young people that say, wow, I can feel what God is doing in my life. I can see the change. And when we do things in our faith, God honors it, and our capacity for faith, our capacity and potential gets bigger. And Jesus continues with this building analogy. It's a bit like the 3 pigs fairy tale. And he says, though the rain comes in torrents and the flood waters rise and the winds beat against the house, it collapsed with a mighty crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowd were amazed at the teaching, for he taught with real authority, quite unlike the teachers of religious law. And as mentioned there in the text, the teachers of law in this context, they were really interested in flexing their knowledge muscles. They would say, here's this thing you don't know, and here's what this prophet said. Whereas Jesus, he wasn't interested in that. He came along and said, hey, here's a little bit of information, but hey, here's what it looks like in the real world. Here's what it looks like for you to give generously at all costs. Here's what it looks like to forgive someone when you don't want to. Here's what it looks like to not look over there and be tempted by other things. Here's what it looks like to really follow me. Because when our actions align with Jesus' teaching, God shows up and our faith gets bigger. And I'm so thankful that I had an experience like the one I had in 2011 that really changed my mindset and helped me to build my life on a rock. When Jesus came and he said, hey, this is what it looks like for you to follow me in your studies and your relationships, things really changed for me. And this is why at Beyond, we are application crazy. We really want to have a community of people who just want to build their life around the solid foundations of Jesus' teaching. And so as an organization, we have put application at the center of everything we do. And if you've been here a while, you know that we package that every week in our message in the form of a For Monday. And maybe you've heard 100 of these, or maybe you're tuning in for the first time and you're about to hear your first. But the reason we do this is because we know that application changes your life. We know that Chris can wow us with all his impressive facts and that Riley can make us laugh with his stories with far too much detail. But we also know that your life isn't going to be any different if the stuff that we share on a Sunday or throughout the week isn't applied to your life. And today we've got 2 different For Mondays for 2 different groups of people that might be listening today. So the first group of people is for Christians, and we'll get to that in a bit, because our second group is for those of you who don't yet consider yourself followers of Jesus. And I just want to pause and say, thank you so much for tuning in. If that's you, we're so grateful that you would give part of your Sunday to us, that you would share and hopefully receive something from this message. But your For Monday is really simple. It is to just get yourself in an environment that prioritizes application over information. And at Beyond, we've made that super easy for you, because after this week, we're going to have 3 more weeks talking super practically about what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to figure our faith out. So please stay tuned, because we've got Chris and Riley coming up over the next couple of weeks talking about that. So your For Monday is sorted. It's just to come back. And for those of you who believe in Jesus, for those of you who want to see Jesus become real in your life, I've got a full Monday for you. And that is to prioritize application over information this week. And it's going to look different for everyone. But I want to encourage you to carve out some time in your day or your week to be alone and to think, what would it look like for Jesus to be a bigger part of my life? Maybe you can go for a run, go for a walk, get out in the garden, or just sit outside on your own and start thinking about how you can build your life on a rock. And if you're stuck at home with the kids, if your workload has significantly increased or you've lost your job, I hope that you can take some time and make some space to really see that this faith that we follow or you might be intrigued in is about application, not information. Because you know that if this was all about knowledge, that your time in isolation would be a little bit better than it is. But as you begin to apply the teachings of Jesus in your life, you're not only going to get better at life, but your life is going to get better. You're going to be known as the person who is generous with their time and their money and their resources. You're going to be known at work as the person who is super level-headed, calm, and is really optimistic. People are going to start noticing the difference in your lifestyle and start getting intrigued about this awesome faith that you have. This faith was designed to be best worked out in action. And this week, I hope your mind is blown as you start to unpack and discover and apply the teachings of Jesus in your life. Let's pray to finish. Dear God, we thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in today for church. Father, would you guide everyone this week as they begin to prioritize application in our life and not just information. So Father, please bless everyone as they go about their week. Amen.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope that you got a lot out of it.
Remember that if you want to stay in touch, you can stay on after this and comment in the comment section below, or you can check us out on Instagram.
And as always, this message will self-destruct as always, this message will be available where good podcasts are found from Wednesday.
We look forward to connecting with you next week for part 3.
Bye.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Are they still there?
Wait, how do we turn this off?
Are they gone yet?
How do we turn it off?
Oh, well, where should we go? Let's go.
Let's go.